So if you've got any problems with anything I say, as in it's not clear, please just ask as we go. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's very nice to meet everybody. And actually, I'd like to just get a bigger feel for who's in the audience. I saw from the question earlier from Luca, there was maybe 2 people who've used Tableau before or seen it. Is that right?
Maybe
2 or 3?
They're too shy. Maybe no.
Who's actually seen or used Tableau? So a hand, like. Okay, so we've got a small amount. Can I assume that the rest of you are Salesforce customers? Is that fair to say? Yeah? Everybody uses some form of Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or Marketing Cloud? Okay, good. So let me do a quick introduction to myself and then a quick story. So my name is David Sigerson. I've been part of Tableau for, this is my 10th year now. I'm not sure who has been longer out of Kate. I think Kate's maybe a little longer than me. Okay, fine. So I'm in my 10th year, and I was part of the acquisition by Salesforce, and I've been using Tableau for some time, but also done a lot with analytics and AI previously in other roles. I've always worked in solution engineer with Tableau, so that means I go around helping customers with their problems, how to identify whether the tool can or cannot solve whatever it is they're trying to do. But the story I wanted to tell you was about the Tableau journey of Salesforce, perhaps taking it back to, say, 10 years ago. Actually, before I start the story, let's ask a question. If you're using Salesforce, is anybody exporting the data from Salesforce for reporting purposes? Does anybody get it out, put it into another tool, put it into Excel? Yeah, it's quite common, right? So here's where the story goes. So in Tableau, we used to run our business on Salesforce, but it didn't fit in line with our mantra of basically giving everybody access to data, giving everybody the ability to ask their own questions, trying to give everybody the confidence and real energy to go and look at the data that's relevant to their accounts, to their customers, to their whatever it might be. So what we used to do in Tableau was export the data on a nightly basis from Salesforce, drop it into a Snowflake database, and then we'd run hundreds, if not thousands, of Tableau dashboards off the back of that. And everybody would come in and do their normal sales job, but they would look at the metrics, but do it via a Tableau dashboard, as opposed to doing it in a CRM A dashboard or in a reporting dashboard. I'm going so far back that actually CRM A dashboards weren't really a thing at that time. But it really helped us as Tableau to have this flexibility, because it meant if we had to change the way we needed to do business, if we had to ask new questions of the business, we had all the data there and it was all accessible in the Snowflake system. Because frankly, it's changed now, but in the old days, the Salesforce data wasn't that accessible, right? It was quite hard to get at. You had to export it, you had to combine it, you had to do all sorts of crazy things for it to make sense. So yes, we always used to do that. We got great benefits from having all that flexibility. And I think this was proven when we got bought by Salesforce. One of the unfortunate things that happened was COVID, right? COVID suddenly changed everybody's business, and actually the reports that people were doing were like no reports they'd done before, because their business was changing. Suddenly they wanted to cut the data in a different way. They wanted to see a different set of customers, a different segment, a different region, a different, whatever it was that related to their business. And Tableau was, as an organization, was able to adapt to that quite easily, because we had this tool, we had this mantra that it's all about giving people access to the data, making it easy for them to make changes, to ask the questions they need, and get the results that they want from their data. So why did I tell you this story? Because you're not all using Tableau now, and maybe it doesn't make sense. I want to set up this idea that Tableau Next is trying to bring this power of data democratization, of data visualization, and most importantly, trying to close that gap between the IT team, or the Salesforce instance, or whatever it might be, and the business user that is generally actually quite far away. So when the business user says, I want a report, they generally have to go to IT in most systems, in most organizations, write a requirement, write a specification, maybe it goes into a team, maybe they build something, maybe it goes back to the business user and they say that wasn't what I asked for, I have to submit another form, another specification, goes back, okay, we'll build you something else, and then over and over and over you get this sort of iterative process that actually in some organisations can take a long time. Now what we're trying to do with Tableau Next is rather than have that older story which worked for us, which was Salesforce, Snowflake, Tableau, we're trying to bring that all together. We're trying to bring the business user to where the data is and the data where the business user is. And Tableau Next is trying to put it all on the same platform. So that there isn't an element of moving data, there's not an element of authorization problems or anything like that. It's just trying to make sure that everything is on the same platform, talks to each other, and hopefully makes it easier for people to interact with their own data that's going to make a difference to them in their business. So, before I go into the demo for real, because my main demo really is about this Tableau Next product, but I thought I want to connect with some of the things that Tableau can do for those of you who've not seen Tableau before. Now, one of my favorite things that we can do today is something called Tableau Pulse. This is my mobile that is sat here, and this is just an example that allows me to look at my key metrics or metrics that I manage on behalf of other people to tell me how well my business is doing. Now in this scenario I'm actually a marketing manager or whatever it might be. But what I can very quickly do is see whether things are working well for me, whether they're working bad for me, and also drill into that data. And here we're using a combination of statistics and AI and all sorts of cool stuff. I've got a ghost in the machine, it sort of moves without me. And you can identify whether any metrics are going up or down, but whether they're dropping outside of the expected regions or numbers that I would have. You get AI insights, so you get sort of common questions that people might be asking, and you yourself can type in a question saying, well, why is it? What's perhaps driving these changes in notifications? So you get this kind of summary, but you also get the ability to break down perhaps that metric by, let's say, loyalty level or whatever you've configured for that metric in advance. And this is really useful because this is more or less an automated process that I haven't had to build. There are metrics that my organisation need to be reporting on. You work in Salesforce every day, it sounds like. You are going to be dealing with your revenue, your sales, your opportunities, etc. And you yourself might have those opportunities, or you might be managing a team of other people. Maybe you've got 10, 15, 100 people underneath you. Being able to look at that top line figure and then drill into it just to see what are the sort of probably the main reasons for any deviations that you weren't expecting, that's pretty cool. I think it is anyway. Now the reason I wanted to show you that was just to put into context some of the things we're going to see in Tableau Next, because the other thing I want to show you is Tableau Next is a development of what we've been doing for a long time. So it is about bringing the Tableau experience of data democratization to the Salesforce platform. It's about bringing the AI with it as well. But it's also about incorporating some of the good stuff we've already got, like Pulse. So I was hoping to go to a slide. Let's see if I can find my slide. It has, for a moment, disappeared. So let's see. There we go. Okay. I don't do too many slides, so I'll just move quickly through this. So, as Attila was talking about before, we're talking about Tableau Next, which is essentially moving the Tableau capability on top of Salesforce, but not just that. It's incorporating all the great stuff that you've got in terms of Data Cloud, in terms of Agentforce, and all those other things. Talked about Tableau Pulse, and move on to Tableau Next. Here we go. So the demo I'm about to do is broadly around two personas. So there is let's say a sales leader, so somebody who is perhaps driven by the metrics, but it's not their job to get involved with the metrics on a daily basis. They don't necessarily ask their own questions, but they need the metrics being delivered to them so that they can act upon them and potentially interact in one or two ways. And then the second part of the demo will move into the analyst, so that would be somebody who actually does ask questions. Now, I would hope we all ask questions, right? but the reality is the analyst is probably the one that is traditionally the person who would go away, do something with the data, come back and provide an answer for the business user. In Tableau, we sort of see these two roles merging, but actually, you know, for the sake of the demo, let's keep it nice and separate like that. So in the first part, you'll see we'll cover some Slack metrics, we'll talk about Tableau Next dashboards, and we'll use some agentic stuff. And in the second part, we'll actually just build some visualizations. So on with the demo. I'm going to do a bit of screen swiping because I have to, otherwise you'll see me typing for quite some time. So I'm this sales manager, right? I'm the person who is just logging in on a weekly basis. I get a bunch of metrics that I need to look at on a regular basis. But guess what? I've got a manager, right? And the manager, I mean, aren't managers wonderful, Kate? They're absolutely lovely. But I've got a manager who is worried, they're concerned that actually the sales that we're seeing in the organization is not where we'd expect. And by expectation, what I mean is this blue line here is where we would anticipate using some statistics, using some AI, that's where we think this metric should be. Or it could be part of a target, maybe some goals that we've put into the system. And we're saying, look, we are dropping beneath this. So she posts this on Slack and we go, okay, let's all gather together and do something about it. Now, as a sales manager, I could panic, I could call somebody up, I could run away, I could hide under the duvet because I don't want to get up and I don't go into the office anymore. But what I can do, and I apologise because the layout hasn't quite been working for me at the moment. This is fresh, by the way, from our Tableau conference. So I've done this about 3 or 4 times and that's it. It's very, very new stuff. I was hoping that we'd get some nice formatting there, but unfortunately it hasn't. Essentially, rather than running away scared, I can go straight to my canvas in Slack. And the canvas in Slack can be, even today, a combination of those pulse metrics that we saw before. So rather than having it on your mobile, you can just drop straight into Slack and say, right, what's going on with these metrics? How are they varying? What's different? What are the changes? But then because it's in Slack, you get a lot of extra capabilities. So you can see things like not just who posted it, what it means, but you can see things like related threads. So you can see whether it's being talked about or used within the other part of the organization, which is pretty good because there might be somebody who's already logged in, who's already looked at the problem and has already answered it on behalf of my sales manager. Unfortunately, I've not been that lucky. I've still got to carry on and keep going. So once I'm there, well, what am I going to do? Well, I might just drop into my standard dashboards. So these will be dashboards that somebody else has probably created for me, something that I can investigate with. Now, I've got my pulses as before, but what I'd like to do is drop into my sales dashboard, which, let me just check whether I've got it. Give me a second. Let's just try that again. This is always the case of doing demos, you get logged out and all sorts of things happen. So what I want to do is just look at my sales dashboard. Okay, we're back on. Go to my home. Okay, I'm going to move to this tab because it's probably easier for me to do it from here. So, a bit of smoke and mirrors. I'm still logged in as Harry. I mean, I'm logged in now as the user, the analyst, but essentially, right, this is my dashboard. So, I have the ability to look at all the different metrics in a normal sort of dashboarding format, but it has all the goodness that you would expect from a Tableau product. I mean, you would hope it's in any dashboarding product that when you hover over things, things appear. When you filter, say for instance, I think that we've done some activities in the enterprise market that might be leading to this drop of sales, I can just filter by that. And it will filter across all of the different elements and it will filter across the dashboard itself. And maybe there's some things here that are of interest. Maybe, if we all peered at this together, we'd come up with some answers. But, in Harry's journey, what he's going to be doing is saying, right, look, that's my top line figures, that's okay, but I need to be able to just get a feel for my overall performance. And you know what, I'll drop into my pipeline analysis, maybe it's more specific to me, maybe there's something I can do a little bit better there. So actually, again, I could drop that into we've got the enterprise at the moment, but maybe I want to look specifically at the total sales. So all I'm going to do is just click on this and say, I'd like to see more about this, please. Ah, perfect. Okay. So what I'm going into is the sheet or the chart itself, and I'm able to sort of look at this in a little more detail if I have to. But the cool thing is, well, if I'm unsure, sorry, let me just shift that thing because I'm just logged into, in order to show this. What I can start doing is use the agents to ask the questions of the data. So even though I, Harry, don't necessarily understand the detailed data model that sits below Salesforce, it shouldn't be too hard for me to just type in a quick question such as what is going on with my total sales in the current quarter. Now what will happen is as I fire this off, I will check that I've got my typing right, is the agent within Salesforce is trying to put in context where this metric comes from, what it's connected to. Is that me? Ooh.
Just sorting it for you, Dave. Just a second. Move it from there.
It's going to where that metric lives in the data cloud, in the semantic model, and it's trying to work out what's connected to it that might be correlated or connected to the question that I've just asked. So this is hitting the Einstein layer. It is obeying all the things that it should do, as in I should only see the data that I'm allowed to see. It will only ask data of that, that particular area. And look, it's given it's returned something. So my total sales this quarter have significantly declined, blah, 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 blah. It seems to be that there's elements of enterprise that we need to look into, but we're impacted in technology, manufacturing, and financial services. This is a good start, right? Harry didn't know anything better, but here's where it gets, oh no! Okay, it doesn't matter whether I close that now. Let me just put that there. There's nothing there for it to hit though. We could use one of the recommendations. So there is an element of Agentforce, having looked at the semantic model, is now saying, right, given that data underneath, there might be some common questions that we need to ask. But, Harry's Harry, so he'll just say, right, what I'd like to do is break down, let's say, total sales by product family, because there seems to be some issues related to that, based on the previous sort of response. Oh, I spelled total wrong, so let's see if it works or not. And this is one of the interesting things about agents as they're implemented in Salesforce, which is they are taking advantage of, ChatGPT, etc. And actually it's sometimes forgiving regardless of what you type. And even the language you type. So even if a language isn't formally supported today, doesn't mean that it won't work in the agents that you're using, because sometimes the ChatGPT will do the translation on your behalf to English, and then you'll get an answer that comes back and makes sense. Sorry about that. Now, what have we got here? So we've got our initial metric. We had a little bit of a sort of language output, but we've asked some more, and Tableau has worked out that actually it might make sense to display this information, because going back to the core things about Tableau is we believe if you visualize data, you're more likely to communicate it better, people are more likely to understand it better, and actually they're more likely to ask further questions of it. So for now, I think that might actually end Harry's journey, I think, for today. He's managed to collaborate with Slack with his boss, he's managed to look at some of his main dashboards, and then he's managed to use agents to try and uncover something that he can now report back to Sarah, his manager. And he could post a link here in Slack or something like that if he needs to. But I'm going to pause because I'm now going to move on to the analyst journey, which is what I was doing before. So I'll just take a pause. Actually, any questions about what I've done so far? Any interest? Would that be useful, having that within a Salesforce platform? That traceability of the metrics, being able to track them, being able to manage them. Okay, everybody's a little bit low. Maybe you should have had the coffee that I've thrown on the floor.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, certainly.
Or maybe this is more to Attila. I see there bets on the very top left. Is
Yes.
this Tableau Next now? It's not generally available yet to the audience. It's there's just beta at the moment. That this is available to a handful of users, or how does this work? Or this is just you?
It's a good question, and one that I find Salesforce manages to make more confusing than it needs to be. So we are releasing it in June as a product, generally available. Although we have actually said it is generally available today. So you could actually switch it on in a Salesforce instance and do stuff with it. So the beta is out there for people to use. But it will be officially launched in June, and I think by then there'll actually be quite a lot of difference in terms of its capability as well. So I'm working within fairly constrained limits within this demo, if that makes sense.
Maybe can I just one additional question?
Yes.
Maybe it was already set, so I apologize for that if it was. So the companies that already have, some dashboards or charts in the now available Tableau, and when we actually go to the next, so it will be just like a switch and the functionality stays the same, but with the update of the AI, or do we need to do it all over?
It will be somewhere in between.
Okay.
So there is an element of, actually it'll make more sense as we get into the demo, but it will make more sense that if all the data elements remain the same, in theory you should just be able to move the dashboards over from where they are today. So
but
for instance, if you have
should we move, it's not the same.
No, it's not the same, because and to really emphasize this is Tableau Next, so it's the new product. And going back to that original story, the main thing is we're trying to take all the goodness of Tableau but put it natively on the Salesforce platform. So you don't have to worry about exporting data, you don't have to worry about authorizing or putting up rules in other places. It's simply allowing greater flexibility with your reporting, with your analysis within the Salesforce platform. So you shouldn't have to shift screens, it should just appear there. And I'm hoping that will come across with this demo. Okay, cool. Everybody with, oh, go on, Luca.
Will you talk more about semantic layer in the future?
Yeah. You're probably the only one in the room that wants to, but I will do it just for you. Oh, you want to know it about, okay, cool. So, okay, let's get straight to the semantic layer then. So, historically within Tableau, we've kind of grouped everything by something called a workbook, which has been very useful for building things quickly, flexibly, etc. But what it's meant is that actually things like sharing data sources, building a semantic layer, building something bigger than this sort of local file that might sit on your desktop has been somewhat, it has its challenges. So what we've done with Tableau Next is introduce something called workspaces. And workspaces are essentially the, if I go here, workspaces are essentially a way of combining all the different assets that you might need just to do analysis in general. So we'll just move this around here now. So for instance, you'll see in this particular workspace, we've got dashboards, we've got visualizations. Visualizations go into dashboards. We've got a semantic model, that's where the descriptions of the data sort of live. And then we've also got the data itself in terms of tables that at the moment in this demo live on Data Cloud. So this is everything to do with these particular reports that we're building today. Now, what I will do is just briefly say, look, if you wanted to add to the semantic model, if you want to add new data, you would be able to do that here. I'm not going to do it now, but essentially we want to make it easy that if you've got an Excel file or if you've got another system that you want to connect to, you can drop those files into the Tableau Next platform without too many problems. But I'm going to move on from that and go to the semantic layer. First question. Who knows what a semantic layer is? Yeah, I figured that might be the case. So, so look, in order for the agents to make sense of the data, they need to know what it is. And we've probably all been quite impressed by the way we type into ChatGPT and it gives us an answer about life and recipes and travel plans and everything else. It works because out there on the internet, there's a million recipes, there's a million travel documents, it has background knowledge to it. Unfortunately, when it comes to your data in your environment, The only people that know about that is you, okay? And so if you put the agent on top of your data directly, it will do stuff, but it will be quite generic. It won't really give you answers to the questions that you ask directly. What the semantic layer does is sit between the data cloud layer and any application on top of it to try and enrich that data in a way that makes sense. And this bit probably makes sense. We all know that in Salesforce we have account records, right? And we all know we have opportunities and things like that, and you probably customize it with a few extra objects so you know that like these different things get connected together in one way or another. All we're really doing is saying, look, this is the way that the data that I've chosen to put in Salesforce connects together. Now this is a very simplistic example because it's just one sales cloud, but it could be Sales Cloud plus Service Cloud plus Marketing Cloud. It could be 5 sales clouds because I've got them all looking after different parts of my business. But what I'm saying is that here there is the ability to essentially connect these tables or these objects, because they're no longer tables in Data Cloud. See, I've got some gremlins going on. In fact, my machine's beginning to slow down, so I might have to curtail some of this demo. What we're basically saying is you can build these connections together between the objects. And as you build those things together, it will make it easier for the agents to do stuff. So for instance, if you're working, say Luca, if you're working at a data level, we should be able to do things like automated connections. So we might know that accounts automatically connect to opportunities. Or we should be able to do silly, crazy things like, I have a feeling this one won't immediately work, but let's just see. Hit and miss from time to time. I think this was, when I tried it earlier, it was complaining that I wasn't getting the calculation right. But what I'm asking it to do is actually create a calculation that perhaps isn't in the data set already. So all I've done is type something in and it's come back and said, right, if you copy and paste this into the display, you'll get a new field that you might be able to use in business. I think what we'll also find is if we go into, where is it? Yeah, it's not allowing me just yet. You can actually get Einstein to generate the code. That's why, because I'm not in edit mode. So let me just drop into edit mode. If I actually wanted to add, say, a new field to the data set or multiple fields, I could simply go into the interface. Maybe I'd draft it with Einstein and again, type in what it is that I'm trying to build. See what Einstein, the LLM, the clever bit of Salesforce does, and what you'll see is it's already putting something quite specific in terms of how that metric has been created. Okay, so there's a bit of magic there, but what's the value, right? The value here is that somebody who is not necessarily the best with data can actually build a new metric or a new piece of data just by asking a question. They don't have to learn the interface per se, they just have to go in, type a few things and then save it, and suddenly they've got a new calculation that they can use in their visualization. So hopefully that seems a little bit interesting. I'm going to skip over the other parts of the semantic model just because it seemed to be a bit slow for me at the moment. Let's go into building one of those visualizations. So if I go back to, where is it? If I go back to the workspace, if I want to build a new visualization, I should be able to just select the semantic model, i.e. the layer between me and the data source, and say, right, let's just build something. Now for you, those of you who are not familiar with Tableau, this is going to maybe look a little bit weird. For those of you who are, this is going to be like, hey, this is Tableau, I know this, I get this. So the thing about Tableau is it's very flexible. It gives you what's called a canvas to build stuff on. You just simply drag and drop the metrics that exist on the left-hand side. You drag and drop them onto the right-hand side and things suddenly start to appear. Now, if I just get rid of that little animation. So for instance, if I'm still interested, if I go back to the story, I'm interested in why my sales are down and whether it relates to any product-related things. So I can quickly look at, say, product family. I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to find product family and I'm just going to drag it over to the display. And then I'm going to ask a question of, well, actually I want to see total sales. And again, I'm just going to drag it over to the display. And what we see is that a chart immediately appears. And there is a difference between this approach and many others, but also particularly those within Salesforce today, which is we are not saying, what do you want outputted? We're saying, here's the data, go and play with it, answer your question, find out what it is that you need to find out based on the data you have access to. I could change the way this looks and feels, so I could drop, maybe get some totals, maybe I could change that number so it's slightly, hasn't got millions and millions in it, it's just sort of a short form thing. Maybe I could look at some additional information, like maybe I think there's something to do with the account type that's affecting the sales. And again, I could just drop this onto the display, onto different parts of the display, and I'll get a different output. And I should be able to rotate that and move it around and do all sorts of wonderful things with it. Now, I've done that in about 6 or 7 clicks. Now, what is it showing us? I've almost stepped away from the story, but it is showing us that it's very, very easy to connect to a semantic model that you're allowed to and drop things onto the display and ask questions of it. Similar to what Luca was doing before with his various different gaming data, it's, okay, how are we going to ask a new question about what that's going to help our business? So that's how you would build a visualization. What I'm going to do is quickly go back to the sales dashboard, if I can find it. Let's try it again. Here we go. So in the sales dashboard, we can then start adding things to it. So once we make a visualization, we can begin to just drop that into the output, just as you would kind of today with the sort of CRM tool. So you've got your little sort of platform for your dashboard. You can simply drop the panel or the pane where you want to put it in. And then hopefully, if I'm allowed to do it, I should just be able to drop that visualization into the new dashboard and save that, and then have it distributed to everybody in the organization. Now, I'm not going to save that particularly, but I'm going to move just on to the last part, which is, if I can go back to the preview page. So we can see that it's been added there, but maybe the other thing that has been added as part of Tableau Next that I really want to emphasize, well, it's part of the same point. It's native within the Salesforce tool. So actually building something like an action within this visualization is super easy. Whereas before you might have to connect Tableau to Salesforce and then try and build an action. From here, I can very quickly say, right, well, in this dashboard, maybe I think there is an issue with one or other of these traders, and I can just take advantage of the action framework. I'm just going to move my little thing there. Let's try and do that. So I can take advantage of the action framework and see what it means. So I can look at maybe a particular record or a particular account or a particular opportunity. Now I could go to a page that, like this, doesn't actually have anything Tableau on it. But I guess one of the other things I'm trying to get through with Tableau Next is, because it's native, you don't have to go to an interface that says, I'm Tableau Next, look at my dashboards. The real idea is we're just putting bits of information wherever you want, wherever's relevant to you in Salesforce. So in this situation, I'm simply just going to change this page. I'm just going to go to the setup, and I'm going to drop maybe that dashboard that we were using before. So I should, I think, have a dashboard here. Oh, come on. No, I didn't want to do that. Wrong thing. Setup, edit page. There we go. So I can see the layout of the page, and I can, as usual, I can drop any sort of lightning object in there, but I'm hoping somewhere there is a Tableau Next dashboard that I can just simply go plop, put it right there. And it's a bit squashed at the moment. It'll appear shortly, but I'll just make it a little bit bigger so it stretches out. And then I can save that. And you can see straight away that even on the individual records, we can drop those Tableau elements that anybody has built just into the relevant pages. So, done a number of things there, okay? Let's go back to the presentation just so I can hopefully summarize. I've lost my presentation. Somewhere here, okay, yeah. So what we saw earlier on with the business user is we saw the Slack metrics, we saw Tableau Next dashboards, we saw agent working for them. And then the second part, hopefully, if it clicks, we saw the Tableau Next homepage, really emphasize that it's part of the whole Salesforce experience now. Talked about the workspace and how you've essentially got this one area for all of your analytical assets, and actually how having the semantic model really enables those agents to make sense, like real sense of your data, and therefore answer the questions that you might have. And then we talked a little bit later about building the visualizations and dropping them into the different pages as part of Salesforce. Again, all native. It all just, you can do it from the off. You don't need special tools, special connections, or anything else like that. So with that, I'm done, but I'm now open to you for any sort of questions you might have on Tableau Next. Anything, there's been a lot there, right? So please do ask some questions.
So if you can return for a bit to the back to the semantic layer, I realize that the goal is that you offer a whole kind of pipeline from the entry data to being able to create a semantic layer with, I guess, prep, right? Kind of tool.
It will be, it won't be with prep, but yes, yeah, you just create it
yeah.
in the interface that you saw.
So this is how you kind of create a semantic layer, but in case I would want to, let's say I have a different tool where I already created my semantic layer and I just want to connect to Tableau Next, is this possible? To import an existing semantic layer into the tool?
Not today, but it will be tomorrow. And I'd like to add to that question. So the semantic layer is built on some real Tableau goodness underneath. And actually, we'll probably find connecting to other semantic layers possible within the Tableau tool before it's possible within Tableau Next. But they're part of the same team. They're building this functionality together. So I think it'll probably pop out in Tableau first, and then you'll see it maybe a few months or maybe a quarter or two later in Tableau Next. So that will be possible. We've already announced, I think, connections with Google and potentially DBT, but we'll look to federate that further. And just for everybody else in the room, because I should have restated the question, so it's all about, well, you've said this is what the data means over here based on your data layer, but what about if I've got data in another system, or I've already built a universe or a world or a description of what all my data means over here? Can I connect to it in a way that doesn't mean replicating everything, you know, having to rebuild everything? And what I'm saying is, yes, you will be able to connect in time. It's something that's coming, it's on the roadmap, it's not too far away. Okay. Any other questions? Question for you then. Does it seem interesting? I mean, are you all sitting there going, well, actually, I don't care about reports, I don't care about data. I mean, is that where you're at, or does it seem like something useful? Tableau Online, well, as Attila was saying, it should just carry on the way that it is. This is very specific for the Salesforce experience. I don't see any reason why Tableau Online wouldn't continue, but I think there'll be a greater emphasis of it dealing with data that isn't part of Salesforce, is my guess. Because what will, for instance, let's go 5 years down the line, there will probably be a story saying, well, I want to go cloud, I've got loads of data, should I go to Tableau Online or should I go to Tableau Next? And I think the answer will be, well, where are you going to put the data? If you're going to put it into the data cloud, which is part of the Salesforce platform, you might as well move to Tableau Next. But if for whatever reasons you don't want to do that, you just want a different type of connector, then it might work with Tableau Online. I think by 5 years though, those products will probably have merged together in some form, but who knows?
What kind of Salesforce licensing do you need to use the
That is a very good question, and one I want to pass to my sales colleagues. Yeah, I don't know is the answer. There's still a lot of discussions around how, I mean, the main thing to be said is we have this SKU called Tableau Plus at the moment. And the idea is if you move to Tableau Plus, all of your users will have access to Tableau Next as well. So perhaps you're using Tableau Cloud, for instance, you will be able to have them both there and in Tableau Next at the same time.
What about Salesforce?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that works.
I I can probably just comment a bit on that, but Attila has the latest. But just, you know, stepping back, right? What is a licensing model? It's very similar to the one that you are used to with Salesforce, which is a user-based license model. The difference is that with right now, as it stands with Tableau Plus, basically it's per user profile, right? So if there is someone like Luca who is analyst, he needs more functionality, and he's going to have the most robust license of them all. And if there's someone who's like C-level, who just goes and views the reports, which are either part of his Salesforce experience or not, that is very light license, right? So this is currently how it is. It's aligned with Salesforce, let's say editions, if you will, right? And yeah, that's how it is now. In terms of your question of the overlap, I think this is not really an overlap, right? It's like we have customers who have many different Salesforce products with a different licensing depending on their needs.
Cool. Okay, last chance for questions. Last question. Anybody? No. Okay. In that case, then, thank you for listening to me. You've been very patient, and you've watched me try and destroy the area with coffee. So thank you very much.